Stonehenge is one of the most enigmatic and mysterious sites in the world, dating back to over 4,000 years ago. This ancient monument has long baffled researchers and scientists for generations. But now, scientists have finally uncovered something extraordinary at Stonehenge that could solve the mystery of this site once and for all. What could this be? Join us as we delve into the astonishing details of this earth-shattering discovery and how it changes everything. Stonehenge is one of the most famous and mysterious prehistoric monuments in the world, located on Salisbury Plain, about 8 miles north of Salisbury, Wiltshire, England. It consists of a ring of large standing stones, some of which are topped by horizontal lintels, forming a unique architectural style. The stones are not only impressive in size and appearance, but also in their arrangement and alignment. The stones are arranged in a complex pattern that reflects the movements of the sun and the moon, and possibly other astronomical phenomena. The site is oriented along a northeast-southwest axis, and the main entrance is aligned with the sunrise of the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. The site also incorporates other features, such as the heel stone, the avenue, and the station stones, that create alignments with the sunset of the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, and the midpoints of the spring and autumn equinoxes, when day and night are equal. However, the purpose and meaning of Stonehenge have long been the subject of much speculation and debate, but no definitive answer has been found until now. Some scholars have suggested that Stonehenge was a temple, a calendar, a burial ground, a healing center, or a place of pilgrimage. Others have proposed more esoteric or mystical interpretations, such as a portal to another dimension, a landing site for aliens, or a center of ley lines and earth energies. But first, let's take a closer look at how Stonehenge was built. This is another aspect of the site that has puzzled and fascinated researchers for centuries. How did the ancient builders manage to transport, shape, and erect such massive stones, without the aid of modern technology or machinery? Archaeologists believe that England's most iconic prehistoric ruin was built in several stages over a long period, spanning from the late Neolithic period, New Stone Age, to the early Bronze Age. The first stage of construction began around 3000 BCE, when a circular ditch was dug around the site, and a bank of earth was piled up inside the ditch. This created a circular enclosure, about 328 feet in diameter, with two entrances facing northeast and southwest. Inside the enclosure, 56 pits, known as the Aubrey holes, were dug along the inner edge of the bank. These pits may have held wooden posts or stones, and some of them contained cremated human remains, suggesting that Stonehenge was used as a cemetery from the very beginning. The site may have also served as a gathering place for rituals or ceremonies, as evidenced by the presence of animal bones, pottery, and flint tools. Around 2500 BCE, the second stage of construction began, when the bluestones were brought to the site. These are a type of volcanic rock, mostly spotted dolerite, that are not found in the local area, but come from the Preseli Hills of Wales, over 150 miles away. These stones are smaller than the sarsen stones, but still weigh a staggering 8,000 pounds each. They have a distinctive blue hue when wet or freshly broken, and some of them have natural grooves or holes that may have been used for fitting or securing them. You may wonder, how then did prehistoric builders manage to haul these massive stones over such a great distance without sophisticated tools or engineering? According to one long-standing theory, Stonehenge's builders fashioned sleds and rollers out of tree trunks to lug the bluestones from the Preseli Hills. They then transferred the boulders onto rafts and floated them first along the Welsh coast and then up the River Avon towards Salisbury Plain. Alternatively, they may have towed each stone with a fleet of vessels. More recent hypotheses have them transporting the bluestones with supersized wicker baskets or a combination of ball bearings, long-grooved planks, and teams of oxen. Whatever the method, it must have required a lot of manpower, coordination, and determination. The bluestones were the first to be erected at Stonehenge, in two concentric circles, around 2400 BCE. The third stage of construction, which took place around 2300 BCE, involved the erection of the sarsen stones. These are massive blocks of sandstone that weighed a whopping 50,000 pounds each. They quarried these blocks from the Marlborough Downs, about 20 miles north of Stonehenge. To shape and smooth the sarsen stones, the builders used stone hammers and chisels. To drag and lift them into place, they used ropes, levers, and ramps. To fit the uprights and lintels together, they used a technique called mortise and tenon joints, similar to woodworking. To align the lintels along the circle and the horseshoe, they used tongue and groove joints. The sarsen stones formed a circle of uprights, about 98.4 feet in diameter, with a continuous ring of lintels on top, creating a majestic sight. Within the sarsen circle, 5 pairs of uprights and lintels, known as trilithons, were arranged in a horseshoe shape, with the tallest pair, over 30 feet high, at the center. The sarsen stones were aligned with the solstices and the equinoxes, marking the seasons and the passage of time. The builders may have used simple tools, such as wooden posts, ropes, and siding stones, to measure and observe the positions of the sun and the moon, and to plan and execute their design. The fourth stage of construction, which occurred around 2200 BCE, involved the rearrangement of the bluestones within the sarsen structure. Some of the bluestones were removed from the double circle, and placed in a smaller circle inside the sarsen circle. Others were placed in a horseshoe shape inside the sarsen horseshoe. The bluestones may have had a special significance for the builders of Stonehenge, as they were carefully positioned to create certain acoustic effects, such as echoes and reverberations. The fifth stage of construction happened around 2000 BCE, when more bluestones were added to the site, possibly from a second source in Wales. These bluestones were placed in an oval shape between the sarsen circle and the sarsen horseshoe, and some of them were aligned with the rising and setting of the sun and the moon at certain times of the year. The bluestones may have been used for ritual or healing purposes, as some of them have traces of wear and polish, indicating that they were touched or rubbed by people. The sixth and final stage of construction took place around 1520 BCE, when 2 rings of pits, known as the Y and Z holes, were dug around the sarsen circle. These pits may have been intended to hold more stones, but they were never filled, and the reason for their existence is unknown. By this time, Stonehenge had reached its final form, and no further major changes were made to the monument. Stonehenge remained in use for several centuries, until it was abandoned around 1100 BCE. Stonehenge received legal protection as a scheduled monument in 1882, and in 1986, it was added to the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Not only did that put Stonehenge on the map, but Stonehenge became the world's most famous stone circle and stands as an icon for all that is mysterious and awe-inspiring about humanity's prehistoric past. However, this also means that deeper studies can be conducted to figure out what this strange site really is and why it was made. Stonehenge has long been the subject of historical speculation, and theories about the meaning and significance of the structure continued to develop in the 21st century. According to the 12th century writer Geoffrey of Monmouth, whose tale of King Arthur and mythical account of English history were considered factual well into the Middle Ages, Stonehenge is the handiwork of the wizard Merlin. In the mid-5th century, the story goes, hundreds of British nobles were slaughtered by the Saxons and buried on Salisbury Plain. Hoping to erect a memorial to his fallen subjects, King Orioles Ambrosius sent an army to Ireland to retrieve a stone circle known as the Giant's Ring, which ancient giants had built from magical African bluestones. The soldiers successfully defeated the Irish but failed to move the stones, so Merlin used his sorcery to spirit them across the sea and arrange them above the mass grave. Legend has it that Ambrosius and his brother Uther, King Arthur's father, are buried there as well. While many believed Monmouth's account to be the true story of Stonehenge's creation for centuries, the monument's construction predates Merlin, or, at least, the real-life figures who are said to have inspired him, by several thousand years. Other early hypotheses attributed its building to the Saxons, Danes, Romans, Greeks, or Egyptians. In the 17th century, archaeologist John Aubrey claimed that Stonehenge was the work of the Celtic high priests known as the Druids, a theory widely popularized by the antiquarian William Stukeley, who had unearthed primitive graves at the site. Even today, people who identify as modern Druids continue to gather at Stonehenge for the summer solstice. However, these theories have been largely dismissed by modern scholars, who have found no evidence to link Stonehenge to the Celts, the Romans, or the Arthurian legend. Instead, they have focused on the evidence that Stonehenge was built by the Neolithic and Bronze Age people who lived in Britain before the arrival of the Celts. In the mid-20th century, using new discoveries and technologies, such as radiocarbon dating, DNA analysis, and ground-penetrating radar, archaeologists have been able to reconstruct the lives and beliefs of the Stonehenge builders. They have found that the builders were farmers and herders, who grew crops and raised animals, such as cattle, sheep, and pigs. They also traded with other regions, such as continental Europe and Ireland, exchanging goods and ideas. They had a complex society, with leaders and followers, and a rich culture, with art, music, and religion. Many modern historians and archaeologists now agree that several distinct tribes of people contributed to Stonehenge, each undertaking a different phase of its construction. Bones, tools, and other artifacts found on the site seem to support this hypothesis. Meanwhile, a recent in-depth analysis of the stones at Stonehenge is challenging all we thought we knew about the famous prehistoric site. The new research suggests that one of the most prominent stones, the altar stone, actually comes from a region much further north than the other stones on the famous site. The researchers used advanced techniques to examine the chemical and mineral composition of the stone, and found that it did not match any of the known sources in Wales or England. Instead, they proposed that the stone may have originated from somewhere in Scotland or Ireland. This revelation means that there needs to be a total re-evaluation of the origins of the various monoliths at Stonehenge. It also raises questions about why it differs in source location from the other stones at Stonehenge. What was the significance of this particular stone, and how did it end up at the site? Was it brought by the same people who erected the other stones, or did it arrive later, by a different group? This disparity in provenance challenges previously held beliefs about the geographic origins of the monument's central stones, which were that all the stones in the inner circle, including the altar stone, originated from the Preseli region in West Wales. This theory was first proposed by British geologist Herbert Henry Thomas in 1923, based on his observations of the rock types and shapes of the stones. He noted a distinction in provenance between the inner and outer circle stones, and his claims seemed like they were the cold hard truth. But the recent study led by Richard Bevans, a professor of geology and earth sciences at Aberystwyth University, challenges Thomas's theory. It suggests that while Thomas was accurate in identifying the source of some of the inner circle stones, the altar stone likely originates from an unknown quarry in the north of Great Britain. This finding contradicts the idea that the builders of Stonehenge had a strong connection with the Preseli region, and that they transported the stones over a long distance for a specific purpose. The altar stone stands out due to its larger size and different rock type compared to the other stones at Stonehenge. This distinction has prompted questions about its origin and how it fits into the site's history. The absence of archaeological evidence indicating the arrival of the altar stone at Stonehenge raises the possibility that it may have been brought to the site at a later date. This challenges the assumption that it was part of the original construction, and that it had a special role in the rituals or ceremonies that took place at the site. With the rock composition of over 50 different sites spanning from South Wales involving the geochemistry and mineralogy so far, of the altar stone, the analysis has not yielded conclusive results identifying a specific source for the altar stone. Over 50 different sites, the researchers are still searching for a match among the potential sites in Scotland and Ireland. The analysis has not yielded conclusive results. Despite extensive efforts, the stone's geological signature hasn't matched any of the known sites examined in the study, not even one. The altar stone contains an unusually high quantity of the chemical element barium. This distinctive feature adds to how hard it is to identify its source, as it differs significantly from the compositions of other known stone sources. The researchers speculate that the stone may have formed in a unique geological environment, such as a volcanic eruption or a meteorite impact. But the composition isn't the only strange thing going on here. There are other intriguing aspects of Stonehenge that have been revealed by recent research conducted by universities and Historic England in the vicinity of the site. These discoveries shed new light on the area that surrounds Stonehenge, and the people who lived and worshipped there. For most of history, our focus has been on Stonehenge itself, the monument, not the area around it. But maybe that's where we should have been looking all along. Using advanced geophysical techniques such as ground-penetrating radar and magnetometry, researchers have identified more than just the North Barrow in the area. Instead, they have uncovered evidence suggesting the existence of potentially up to a dozen small circular or oval enclosures. These features are characterized by surrounding ditches and external earth and banks. Not just that, but many of these enclosures incorporate circles formed by upright posts, similar to the ones used in the construction of Stonehenge. Archaeologists have given these enclosures the designation of henges, a term inspired by Stonehenge itself. This classification means that there's a shared architectural or structural characteristic with the iconic Stonehenge monument. By the way the monument was created, it's clear that these sites served religious or ceremonial purposes. Although we still don't know which specific rituals or ceremonies were conducted within them, the henges are considered to be hubs of religious or spiritual activity in the ancient landscape surrounding Stonehenge. They may have been used for seasonal festivals, astronomical observations, or rites of passage. That might sound all peaceful, but it's possible that there was a lot of violence within these stones. One of the clues that hint at this possibility is the presence of carvings of an early Bronze Age dagger and axe head on one of the upright sarsen stones. What's crazy is that when a thorough examination of early photographs of the monument was conducted, it was immediately clear that these carvings were present, but no one really noticed them before. They were overlooked for decades, until Professor Richard Atkinson, while studying Stonehenge in 1953, spotted them and brought them to public attention. Following Atkinson's initial discovery, more carvings were gradually unearthed over the years. By 2005, a total of 3 daggers and 44 axe heads had been identified on the stones. These carvings were of distinctive shapes that resembled the axes and daggers used during the early Bronze Age, specifically around 1750 to 1500 BC. They were made by pecking or chiseling the surface of the stone with a hard tool, such as a metal or stone hammer. But the most interesting thing here is that these carvings were made approximately 1,000 years after the stones were originally erected at Stonehenge. This implies a later cultural and ceremonial activity associated with the site, where the ancient builders chose to embellish the existing stones with these carvings. Perhaps they wanted to mark their presence or claim ownership of the site. Or maybe they wanted to honor their ancestors or gods by adding these symbols of power and prestige. To further investigate these carvings, Historic England commissioned a high-resolution laser scan of the stones in 2011. This advanced technology revealed an additional 71 axe head carvings and 1 possible new dagger, bringing the total number of carvings to 115. This remarkable discovery effectively doubled the known number of early Bronze Age axe head carvings in all of Britain. It also made Stonehenge the largest concentration of such carvings in Europe. Could these axes be a sign that this place was used for something much darker than worship? Some scholars have suggested that they may indicate a violent or sacrificial aspect of the ceremonies that took place at the site. Others have argued that they may represent offerings or gifts to the gods or the spirits of the ancestors. The true meaning of these carvings remains a mystery, but they certainly add another layer of complexity and intrigue to the story of Stonehenge. Meanwhile, an Anglo-Saxon skeleton was unearthed in a shallow grave located just outside the Stonehenge stone circle. The skeleton was found by William Hawley, an archaeologist who was conducting excavations at the site. Hawley was intrigued by the unusual position and orientation of the skeleton, which suggested that it had been buried hastily and without proper care. The skeleton was transported to London for further study. Unfortunately, during the turmoil of World War II, it was believed to have been lost during the Blitz, when many buildings and artifacts were destroyed by German bombs. Thankfully, in the 1980s, archaeologist Mike Pitts rediscovered the skeleton at the Royal College of Surgeons, where it had been stored in a wooden box. Pitts recognized the skeleton as the one that Hawley had found at Stonehenge, and decided to conduct a more detailed investigation. Specialists conducted a comprehensive examination of the skeleton, leading to crucial revelations about the individual's life and death. It was confirmed that the skeleton belonged to a young man who had met a violent end. He had been decapitated with a sharp metal blade, most likely a sword, by a single right-handed blow to the back of the neck. The cut was so deep that it severed the spinal cord and the jugular vein, causing instant death. The head was then placed on top of the body, facing the opposite direction. Radiocarbon dating provided key insights into the timeline of this tragic event. The analysis indicated that the decapitation occurred between approximately AD 660 and 890, a period when Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were engaged in frequent wars and raids. The identity and motive of the killer remain unknown, but there are some possible scenarios that could explain the gruesome fate of the young man. He could have been a victim of a raid, a prisoner of war, a political rival, a criminal, or a sacrificial offering. He could have been killed at Stonehenge, or elsewhere, and then brought to the site. He could have been buried by his enemies, or by his friends or relatives. Whatever the case, his burial at Stonehenge suggests that the site still had some significance or symbolism for the people who lived in the area during the Anglo-Saxon era. The skeleton is a rare and valuable evidence of the human history and drama that took place around the ancient monument. What do you think of this gruesome discovery? Could we have been looking at Stonehenge the wrong way this whole time? How do you feel about the possibility of violence or sacrifice at Stonehenge? We would love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Thanks for watching, fam. For a more thrilling video, click now on the next video that pops up on your screen.